Hi, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I said last week that I was going to shift gears and take a break from telling the story of my life, my childhood. If you haven't had an opportunity, you can go back and you can give a listen to the last 4 episodes have been about my childhood, and I just renamed them because I had the story of my childhood part 1, 2, 3, and 4. That was boring. So the first one in this series of 4 that talked about, or 3, sorry, that talked about my childhood was January 31st. I was born into chaos. And then 6 days ago, I released My Mom Marries My Uncle. Yeah, true story. And then this last Fridays was on my own at 15 years old. I moved out when I was 15 and a half. And then I stopped that one when I was in the military and I was just getting ready to come back stateside from Germany. But I am going to take a pause. I think next episode on Friday, I'll go back into my adulthood. I think if you're going to follow along with this podcast as it evolves and grows, it's good to know. I always like to say, it's good to know when I give my perspectives, because I'm going to talk about parenting today, I think. We'll see where it goes. It's good to know where I'm coming from when I give my views on things. I think that's good for anyone you choose to listen to, whether it's in a podcast or, on TV or on the radio, whatever it is, or in person if you go watch someone speak. I like to know, when someone's talking, where are they coming from? What's their life experience? What's their education? Are they a professional? I think we need to do more of that. A lot of people say that they're experts in areas, but are they? And does that mean if someone says they're an expert, does that mean that they have to have education only? No, I don't think education only makes someone an expert. Personally, I don't. I don't think just because someone has worked in a certain field for any length of time, does that make them an expert? Maybe. Life experience, that can be valuable. Alas, your kids are watching you. I say that when I give a lecture at an all-male inpatient treatment center. I say that there. And I say that to any group that I'm talking to, and I'm saying it to you. If you're a parent, your kids are watching you. And what do I mean when I say that? Well, they're watching how you behave in the world. They're watching how you are when you're behind closed doors. They're always listening. I think of my grandson Anthony. He lives with his dad full time, and he's always listening. I'll be on the phone with Anthony, and then Anthony will pop out of his room, all of a sudden, and act goofy. Their kids are always watching us, the adults in the room, and especially for you as a parent, your kids are watching you. I don't like a lot of what I'm seeing in our society right now in the realm of what the adults in the room are teaching our kids. Yeah. Politically, it's always name calling and putting people down and bashing the other side. Terrible. Like my my wife owns a preschool, and she teaches. What do kids learn in preschool? They learn how to be kind to each other, how to play well, how to share, how to manage their emotions. A lot of it is social emotional learning. And I say, honey, maybe we should do a preschool for adults. I think there are a lot of adults who could really use an opportunity to go back to learning how to be kind to each other. Yeah. I'll just never forget this. I was in a local coffee shop I go to almost every day. Today was not one of those days. Weekends, sometimes I'll take a day off. But if you're in Ellensburg, go to Weiniger's Coffee and Creamery. They have the best ice cream in the world. Corey, here's a shout out for Weiniger's. They make it right here in Ellensburg. That was not a paid advertisement. I love Corey and his family. Corey's a good friend of mine. But I go in there daily, and I'll never forget going in once, and I'm in line, and in front of me is an adult. With them is a child. And you might have seen these sayings and these hoodies. It was on a hoodie, and on the back of the hoodie was a big middle finger. Big, like it's kind of skeleton type, like really tough looking middle finger. And it had some words with it. And the words were, "Fuck your feelings." And I just go, "Ooh, man, our kids are watching." Our kids are watching us, the adults, treat each other like garbage, right? Keyboard warriors I see this a lot. We all see this. I see people online. Online on social media is probably the worst place to have a debate. You don't see debates. You just see almost immediately name calling and putting people down and all of that. And now we see this in the public realm through things like people who wear hoodies that say, "Fuck your feelings." And our kids are watching. I see this too, and I get it. I'm going to try to explain this in a way that you can receive it from my point of view. I see it's a more recent trend that I've seen in the last decade-ish, a little less than. I'm raising lions, not sheep. Okay, well, what's the meaning behind that? You want to raise, if it's like you want to raise a child in a way that they're self-sufficient and they're independent and they can think for themselves, that's great. But unfortunately, I don't think that's always what people are meaning. I see this almost attack, like always on the offense and not being vulnerable. In fact, I think that I'm raising lions, not sheep, for boys, for men especially. It's like, be tough. Be the toughest one in the room. Don't be vulnerable. Don't have feelings. I grew up in an era, if you listen to any of my podcasts talking about my childhood, with my mom, we weren't allowed to have feelings. We just weren't. Gen Xers and baby boomers, like us or not, we were raised in an era where it was like, stuff your feelings. If you want something to cry about, I'll give you something to cry about. Tough, be tough it up. And then I also think of, this is new for me, that we live in the preschool. I'm recording these. We live upstairs. The preschool's downstairs. Right now as I'm recording this, it's a Sunday, so no kids are here. But we teach the kids, we teach our children in society how to manage their feelings, 3 to 5. Katrina does great work in that realm. Social emotional learning, right? We hear all of that. But at what age do we stop allowing kids to feel? At what point are we parents, telling our kids, whether directly or indirectly, that having feelings aren't okay? And I remember growing up, you want something to cry about, I'll give you something. If you're going to cry, go to your room. It's like, oh man. Our kids are watching us. Your kids are watching you. And so the do as I say, not as I do, which I don't hear a lot of parents saying that. Some do. And I think some of that, you get to do things as an adult that you don't get to do things as a kid. Like I'll go downstairs sometimes in the middle of the day, and I don't know why we don't let our kids do this, but I guess we want to teach them healthy eating habits. Yeah, that's probably it. but I'll eat ice cream in the middle of the day and I'll think, man, yeah, this is what adulting's all about. Like if a child were to go do that, you can't eat ice cream in the middle of the day. But what I'm referring to when I say do as I say, not as I do, think of your behavior as an adult. Being mindful that your kids are watching, listening, and learning from you, even when you think they aren't. They are. They're observing our behavior, how we treat others in our circle of influence. You'll hear me talk about your circle of influence being critical to your success, right? The 4 or 5 people that you communicate with on a regular basis. Think about those people and how you interact with them. Think about how you interact, and your kids are watching, with people who you don't agree with their viewpoint on a thing. And this is where we go into politics here. It's either you're this or you're that, and I'm middle of the road. You can't put me in a box politically. I've lived enough of a life that you're not going to pigeonhole me into being highly conservative or highly liberal. I'm really middle of the road. I believe that we need some social services to help people. I believe in fiscal responsibility 100%, like taxes like crazy. Here you go. Let's bring back term limits. Let's do that. Here we go. Let's take big money out of politics. Let's go back to a time where someone is elected because of who they are or aren't, rather than how much money they can raise. Because that's how elections are won and lost. Did you know that the last 2 or 3 presidential election cycles have gone into the billions? And you see this on the news. It's how much money you have. That's how people get elected. And now what we're seeing, and our kids are watching, who can be the meanest? Who can be the most brutal toward their opponent? Who can, and they say it people who agree with this mentality. Well, it needs to be said. Hell, okay. Things might need to be said, but can't we say things in a way that are respectful? Like, I laugh, I chuckle when I hear there's going to be a debate, right, during an election cycle. Oh, there's going to be a debate. We don't have debates anymore, friends. We don't have true debates anymore. Think about it. It's either a very orchestrated forum, right? Sometimes they actually call it a forum, but they'll call it a debate, where there are predefined questions, right? And each side answers the question. A true debate, where civil discourse is in place, is where the opponents talk to each other, they share their opposing viewpoints, but they do it in a respectful manner. What happened to that? Why do we think it's okay to be mean-spirited, putting our opponent down as a recourse to try to give us a leg up? Our kids are watching. Our kids are learning. Who you are as an individual is who you are creating with your child. I very much value, as a grandparent now, I talk to the boys about being respectful of each other, about being kind when we're out in the world, about saying please and thank you. No, we say this to kids in schools. No name calling. Then I say this to our school administrators, who are probably some who are, it's okay to name call outside of the school. It's okay to wear clothing that says fuck your feelings, but then you're in other environments and all of a sudden, nope, don't do that, Junior. It's like, oh my gosh. Your kids are watching. So let me talk specifically about parenting and give you some hope. You can change your behavior. If you struggle, if you're a parent right now of a child and you have created some dysfunctional stuff because of your behavior, I have been guilty of that. You can make a change. You can get help, educate yourself, go to counseling, talk to people who you view as being good parents and healthy parenting. You can go to classes. You can turn the ship around. Now, I'll say that to say this. It might be a little late. Yeah, I know. You're like, what? Yeah. Because once a kid's, if I look at my life, my crazy wild ride of a childhood, when Johnny had died and mom remarried again, I was 12, 13 years old. Yeah. Yep, I was 13. It was too late. It was too late. Now, if you have a teenager and you've created dysfunction in their life, I'm going to say this because I'm a hope dealer. It's still not too late. It might take more work on your part, right? You have to take ownership for your part in the dysfunctional behavior and make change. Be vulnerable, right? Like I said, go to a counselor, go to a parenting class. And parenting can be a really isolating thing because we think we have to do it perfectly. And I'm glad I remembered to say this. You don't have to be perfect. Like I cuss around the grandsons all the time. I do. Here's what else I have done with my grandsons and my son. And I want you to think about this for yourself. And this is being vulnerable with the kids in your world that you're raising and you're having an impact on. And it's apologizing for your behavior and then turning that behavior around. Right? I can't remember when it was, but I got angry. I got heated and I lost it. And I talked to my grandson and I said, you know what, grandson? What I did was unacceptable. I tell you to be kind and be respectful and speak your piece, but do it in a kind, respectful way. And I did not do that. And I apologize. And I've done that with my son. He was there because he was the one that I did this with. We had an argument in a pumpkin patch. Good job, Dad. And this is me, the adult, who has an adult son. Well, you know what I needed to do? I needed to right that ship, and I apologized to him. And now, here's what else I'm going to say. You can apologize all day long, but if you don't change the behavior, don't expect that the results are going to be different. I'm certain my mom, with all the crazy that we had, I'm certain she didn't want that for us. I don't remember my mom ever doing any of what I'm suggesting to you. Like sitting down with us and apologize. Oh, kids, I'm sorry. I got, brought another man into your life. God, I'm sorry. I just never. Later, much later in life, we had some really good talks. But you can apologize till you're blue in the face, but if you don't change the behavior, then stop apologizing because it's for naught. And here's something else. Kids are intuitive. They're smarter than we give themselves credit. They're always watching and observing. Like this has really been right in my face since we opened the preschool, right? Like these kids, 3 to 5 years old. They are watching and observing their surroundings. Like some, you have to really be looking for it because you'd be like, no, they're not. No, they're listening and they're watching. That's how we learn as humans. That's how we evolve as humans. We watch, we listen, we observe, and then we start mimicking that behavior from which we've learned from our parents. So is it any surprise next on a Friday, I'll go back into the story of my life. I'll go into my adult years, my first marriage. Okay. Is it any surprise? We can't be surprised as adults if our kids grow into adults and start repeating that same behavior that we've taught them. That we may not want for them. We hope to God that doesn't happen for them. But if that's what you've taught them, you then can't be surprised that they repeat it. You then can't blame them, right? And here's other, and I get this to a point. Some people say, well, once you're an adult, you have to own your behavior. It's your behavior. I'm like, oh, okay, hold on. Is it that simplistic? I don't think so. I really don't. So, is it any surprise that my behavior in relationships started out dysfunctional from a young age, from my very first relationships with women? Terrible, right? My first marriage was pretty much mimicked what I learned as a child from my mom. There was drinking, there was infidelity, there was always this, well, I'll just quit. I remember going to my mom, and I think this happened for my siblings too, when we became adults and got into our first marriages and relationships. I remember going to my mom once with a relationship problem, right? Like I was struggling in my relationship, and what did she say to do? Do you think my mom said, hey, well, son, you need to sit down and you need to talk about it and you need to try to figure out? Do you think she said that? No. Do you think my mom said, well, maybe you guys should consider going to counseling? No. Well, do you think my mom, this is great. Do you think my mom said, well, son, what's your part in it? What's the behavior that you're doing that maybe? No. Here we go. You ready? Here's what my mom suggested I do. Oh, you should just leave. You should just leave. I'll never forget that. I'm like, oh my gosh. And of course she did, because that's all she knew. Excuse me. Our kids are watching us. They're learning from us. They're taking on our behavior. They are us, right? And excuse me, I have a little bit of a cold, but I wanted to get this recorded, so I might just cut this off here soon because my voice is getting upset. Our kids are watching us. They're learning from us. They're adapting from us. And they will become us. Like, oh, that's what I was going to say. Your kid looks like you because of right genes. You will imprint. This is why you see cycles of addiction and domestic violence and behaviors, generational cycles of behavior, because it gets burned into our genes. Yeah. So here's the hope, and then I'm done. You can turn this around. I am just one example of many who have been able to break generational cycles of addiction, break generational cycles of dysfunction, right? I think of my son, and I hope he listens to this one. I am so proud of my son, he's been single for a while by choice. Yeah. He could easily. He's a good-looking guy. He's got a job. He's got, he would just, I don't have, I've got, whatever. He's a good man. He's a good catch, but he chooses to stay single to take care of his son who lives with him full time. He's been sober. He'll have 11 years in May. I'll celebrate 18 years next month. My grandsons, his sons, have never seen their grandfather in active addiction. Never. Anthony was a toddler. So when he was young, preschool age, his dad had a little bit of active addiction going on, but he's been sober. Anthony's 14 for 11 years. Alaric's never seen his father in active addiction. Breaking generational cycles of addiction. Also with the boys, teaching them that it's okay to have feelings. It's okay to struggle. Teaching them to be kind with others. Teaching them that what you see on the screen is not what we, the Douglas boys, view as good behavior in the world. So there is hope. If I can do this. I'm nobody special. If you've listened to any of my podcasts, if you've watched me speak, if you know me at all, you know I say I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm not. But what I do is keep an open mind and educate myself in those areas that I want to improve in. And I hope that for you. Until next time, signing off.